Elementary music teacher friend, you love what you do, but you might feel unappreciated and, in fact, unseen some days. You may even feel like you're on a music teacher island and just want to connect with other music teachers who can relate to both your struggles and wins when it comes to teaching elementary music. I get you and understand completely the feelings you're having. That's why each and every week, the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast will provide you with solo and guest episodes that will help you realize you're not alone in your music teaching journey. Throughout each episode, my goal is for you to be able to walk away with actionable steps and ideas to help you feel like you're ready to take on the new week with whatever challenges may be thrown your way. Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Peresta, and I'm so glad you're here. Whether you're at home, in your car, in the shower, or wherever else you're listening, grab your cup of coffee or whatever other beverage is nearby and listen in to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. Hey friends, welcome back to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. I am so excited to have you back today, and I'm also super excited to have a brand new guest episode that you will be hearing today. So this episode is with Lori Burke, and we discuss her story as a songwriter and how you can help your students write songs with ease. I know it's tricky to help your students with songwriting. How do you do it? What's the best approach? But we talk about all of that in this episode, and she gives so many actionable steps, including choosing a topic, using music to write a story, changing up the words to a familiar melody, and so much more. We also discuss the importance of music education in music teachers and how music can be used as a tool in students' lives when they need it. Lori Burke is the business owner and entrepreneur at Lori Burke Music LLC. She uses music and kinesthetics as a medium to achieve dreams. She's a Sesame Street alumni songwriter, a Division I Javelin athlete, Hall of Famer for volleyball, and has been nationally recognized for her work by The Today Show, PBS, Huffington Post, Redbook, and YouTube viral video. She's been married for 20 years to her high school sweetheart and has two beautiful children who are teens, and they're also achieving their big dreams. So without further ado, let's dive in with Lori Burke. Lori, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm so happy to be here. I was looking forward to this all week.
Yeah,
Tell
everybody a little bit about you.
Okay, so I am Lori Burke. I'm from Northwest Pennsylvania, originally born in Ohio, but I moved here when I was 6. And I grew up in a really musical family. My mom and dad were always in the choir at church, and I grew up basically in the choir loft listening to their rehearsals. And we were Catholic, so it was like a major deal. It was like the organ and oh my gosh, the grandiosity of the sound, and it just infused into my DNA. So so that baseline for me from age 0, it was huge. And then, we kind of grew up listening to folk music, John Denver and Kenny Rogers, and listening to 8-track tapes in the car. And my mom is an alto, so she would always harmonize. And I was like, ooh, I like that. And we're a family of 5. I'm one of 3 girls. I'm the youngest. And just the whole, like, the harmony, and like we all had good intonation because we grew up around music, and it was just like always really fun to sing. And they got me into piano lessons at age 6. And then I took clarinet in middle school. I was in the drum line in high school. Then I picked up a guitar at 18. I took it to Penn State with me, and, did the whole kind of hippie college thing where I loved like Indigo Girls and Jewel. And I would just sit and play my guitar, and then I would write songs. And then the night my now husband proposed to me, my gift to him that Christmas was a song that I wrote to him. And it was just like, music has always been part of my life. I just love it so much. It's just such a touch point for me. And so then from then, I got married. Music was still in my life. I was asked to be in a old time string band. So we played tons of folk music, kind of grungy B-side, kind of Johnny Cash and Alison Krauss and all this good stuff. And I'm still technically in the band, even though it's COVID. We haven't performed for over a year. But that band, we released 2 albums, and I wrote the title track of, one of the albums, and oh goodness. So from there, I had children about 5 years after my husband and I got married. And he was my high school sweetheart. And I had kids, and I kind of fell in love with this signing time videos for my daughter, and was sort of into Rachel Coleman and the whole using sign language and music. And just thought it was such a great way to teach kids language. And I studied kinesiology at Penn State, so I was really into movement science, and I was always an athlete, and that helped me with my music because I was really coordinated and I was able to pick things up super quick. So I don't know, I've always loved music and movement. So I got certified to teach actually health and physical education. That's what my teaching certification is in Pennsylvania. But from the time my kids were little, there was no live music for kids in our town. So, the best way to make something happen is to just do it yourself. I'm like, why don't I just do it? I can play guitar, I can sing, I love kids, and I love feeling like I'm 6 years old all the time. So let's do this. Yeah. So I used to work at a coffee shop in town, and I ended up asking the owner, I'm like, can I sing for kids here? And she's like, of course. So I started off with, 5 people would come, then 10 people, then 20, then 50, and it became this huge thing in our community. And I ended up moving locations to this big giant barn in our town called Goodell Gardens. And I think my record crowd number was like 250 people. And it was just such a great way to connect with kids and families and communities. And it totally lit me up as an artist and a mom. And I met some of my best friends at those sing-alongs. Oh, so then from there, I became a teacher because one of the preschools in town was like, hey, we hear you do these sing-alongs. Can you just show up and do exactly what you do with those for our school? And I was like, and my kids went to that preschool. So just at the moment where I thought I'd finally get some alone time as a mom, sending them to preschool, I went to preschool with them. And it happened to be this preschool that I actually, when I was little, I wish I'd always gone to. So it was super kind of kismety. It was like all my friends used to go to this preschool. It's called Jack and Jill. And I was like, oh my gosh, not only am my kids are going, I get to go, and I get to be a big part of it. And I would put on 2 or 3 concerts a year. And I was just kind of teaching in a sing-along format, but then I would add a lot more just movement to it. And I was just getting to be truly myself teaching. So it was great. And I loved it. And I did it I was just going to do it for the 3 years my kids were in the school, and I ended up staying 10 years. Wow. And right before COVID, I said to myself, okay, I've put in, actually it was 9 years. So I put in my almost a decade, and I just have to say goodbye. It was just, okay, here's the thing about teaching. We all know this. It's like a love-hate relationship. I loved when I was in the moment. I loved after our concerts. I loved the kids. I loved the families. I loved my coworkers.
So let's start with, first of all, I am also one of 3 girls. I'm the middle child though. And then I went to have 3 boys. So it's just kind of ironic. And then we are both piano and clarinet players too. I don't know if you knew that about me. But yeah, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about your Sesame Street story. So tell us a little bit more about that. Like, how did you get asked to write a song for Sesame Street? What was the whole process like? And then I'm going to ask you some questions about advice you have maybe for teachers wanting to write music, just to even like share with their students in the classroom. So just tell us about your Sesame Street journey. I want to hear more about that.
I mean, like I told you earlier, it was like lightning in a bottle. I think it really started as a kid having the dream to be on the show. I remember asking my mom, like, how do you get on the show? I want to sit on those brownstone steps. I want to talk to the Muppets. Get me on there. And she's just like, no, it's just, I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know, But my mom was a big part of Sesame. She's the one that would turn it on for me. She would sit with me and watch. And it was just magical. It still is. It's just, it's just the perfect, I just think it's I don't even know how to describe it. It's just the most amazing show. So of course it started with the dream of even the worthiness of me and the dream wanting to even be a part of it, and to know in my bones, actually as a kid, I'm like, I am going to be a part of something big. And I think we all have that in us, you have the potential, and then it's in the back. It was always subconsciously in the back of my mind to be part of something like that. So when the opportunity came to me, of course it was a yes. And so I guess this is how it's always someone, right? So that's the easy answer. The details of it are that I took my daughter to kinder music as a kid, as a 3 and 4-year-old. One of the other parents in the class happened to be an animator in my town, and he works for the college. And just long story short, he knew someone in the animation department that had worked for Sesame, and he basically tagged the friend that I know, because he does stop motion as a specialty, and it's a very kind of a rare niche-y way to do animation. And then he tagged me because I was the only person in town that does music for kids that he knew. And he liked my old time string band. And I had worked with him he had done a video for my old time string band using stop motion, which you can look for that on YouTube. It's called Indian Ate the Woodchuck. It's an old timey song. Anyway, he tagged me. He just out of the blue called me and basically said, do you want to help me write a song for Sesame Street? Of course, I was sitting on the beach in my town where I used to lifeguard and used to sit and daydream about doing something cool with my life. And that was the phone call, and it changed everything for me.
So neat. That's so cool.
It was awesome. So how to write or how to bring that kind of songwriting into the classroom. I wrote a few things down, and this is like songwriting advice. And some of it I learned from Kathy Heller in her course, and some of it I learned on the fly because, of course, I had never written for a major television production in my life. I had never worked with an animator ever to write a storyboard. I learned everything. They threw me into the fire, and I learned quickly. First of all, the first time we pitched to them, they said no. But they liked what we were doing, and they said, please pitch again. So with Sesame, you can't cold pitch them. They have to invite you to do an RFP, which is called a request for pitch. They send you the RFP. It's a request for pitch. They gave us a list of letters of the day that they needed work on, and we got to choose which one we wanted. The first time we pitched, I think 3 different letters, 3 different songs, 3 different ideas. And the second time around, they did come back to us, and I said, you know what? Brad was my cohort. I said, Brad, let's just pick one and go all in. And we picked G is for Games. I knew it aligned with me because as a health and phys ed teacher, I loved games, and I don't know, it just felt good to me. So we chose G is for Games. So with the way that Sesame does things, not only do they have the letter of the day, but they have a lesson that they want you to learn from. They're not just writing about G just to write about the letter G.
Yeah.
So our task was to take the letter G and teach sportsmanship. So as a health and phys ed teacher and an ex-volleyball coach, I was like, I've totally got this. So you're taking the letter G and you're taking the concept of sportsmanship, and then they're like, okay, give us a song and make it awesome and animate it. So what we sat down with and did at first, we storyboarded. So the first piece of advice I would say is tell a story. That is the best way. I mean, you think of country music, it's like 3 chords and the truth. It's always a story. There's a beginning, middle, and end, and in between there's the details, and your chorus is your chorus is the thing, right? So I would say, first of all, come at it from a storytelling perspective. We actually did the storyboard and all the pictures before we even wrote a line of lyric. And then the last thing we put to it was the music. So it's tell the story, show the story, right? It's like show the story, tell the story, sing the story. So it's kind of that order. So the idea that sparked in my head, which I thought was really funny, was what if we showed fish playing Go Fish? As a kid, my
Oh,
favorite, as a kid, my favorite game to play with, and then I thought, and take your world and things you know about as your reference. So as a kid, I loved playing Go Fish. Okay, what would make that fun? I don't know, fish playing Go Fish. Okay, good. They're playing a game. How are they going to learn sportsmanship with this? What's going to happen? So we started storyboarding. I said, well, obviously it's an under the sea feel, so let's go calypso. So then we picked our genre to match the story. So I was like, okay, under the sea, I want it to feel super vibey with like marimba and ukulele and bongo drums, and make it really fun. And to be honest, I went to my not my calypso, my Casio keyboard that I've had since I was 10. I switched it over to whatever the genre is, that there those
yeah.
presets. I played the calypso. I threw in, the basic 1 4 5 chords.
Yeah.
That was my bass. Then I called the person I know best, that is the best with the English language, which is my sister, who was a master's of English. And I said, do you want to help me with this? You're good with words. So it's asking for help when you need it, right? Too. So we picked the genre, that was calypso. We picked the character lesson was already picked for us, sportsmanship. We focused on the one letter G. Then I said, okay, what can we do with this letter? What can letter G become for these? And then I was like, oh, and a school of fish. Of course, they're going to learn. They're a school of fish. So we took the letter G. We put the letter G as the focus of each scene, and they were playing with the letter G. So the G became the table that they were playing Go Fish on. The G became the basketball backboard that they were shooting the hoops with. And with the animation, one of the fish kind of stumbles and falls, and another fish helps him back up.
Oh, I
So
love that.
so the characters were acting out the sportsmanship, and then the lyric was telling the story too. So you can go watch it. It's called G is for Games. It's on YouTube. If you just look that up, it's really one of my proudest pieces of work. It just makes me so happy. So really the lyric and the song and the music, that was a lot of back and forth with the producers. They have a very specific, keen eye. They are the best in the business. So we had several rewrites, and that just goes with working with somebody who is brutally honest and
Yeah.
really good at what they do. So
Yeah.
another piece of advice is, if you really want to make a really good song, bring it to someone who is absolutely I don't know what's the word, picky, because man, did that sharpen our axe. And you had to be, and we had 1 minute to make all this happen. They're like, you have 60 seconds to make G is for Games happen.
Oh my gosh.
So it was pretty crazy, because then we had to keep condensing down to like, what is the most important thing? What's the most important image we're going to show? What are the most important words and the notes? And it all had to come together. It was like, it was crazy to think that you only have 60 seconds to make this happen. And it was magic once it came together.
Yeah.
Oh, and I had to hire a vocalist, which ended up being my husband's best friend's daughter, and my son got to do the voiceover. So that part was really fun, to be able to invite people from my world into the Sesame world. That just, oh God, it was just such, like I said, it was lightning in a bottle. It really was. But as far as teaching goes, and if you want to, write songs, and I would just say, definitely focus on telling a story. Pick a reference track that you already like, and you can parody a song very easily. So many of the songs that we sing to our kids are parodies of other songs that have just, the kids already know the melody of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. It's also the melody of the alphabet song. It's also the melody of Baba Black Sheep. It's like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. Parody is one of my jams. I mean, it is one of my favorite things ever. So
Yeah, that's so
all else
fun.
fails, parody. There's a structure already in place for you. You just change the words, make it
Ooh,
work.
that's a good idea. Oh, I love that. I was writing down a couple things that I wanted to talk about with you, because the first thing is I've heard a lot of music teachers, especially, and you've probably heard this too, but especially when working with older elementary students, like fourth, fifth grade, maybe even, well, actually sixth graders too, those that teach sixth grade, is they want to do more with their kids, but songwriting or
Mm-hmm.
composing or even improvising overwhelms them. And so I
Mm-hmm.
love what you said about you said earlier, pick a topic, just pick something, maybe
Mm-hmm.
have a class discussion, and maybe you're doing a class composition project where you're picking a topic together as a class, and I know it's harder during COVID, but if you can even do this while teaching virtually,
Mm-hmm.
split the kids into small groups and say each group picks a topic, and then like they
Mm-hmm.
could even do it like a letter, like
Yeah.
pick the letter G,
Yeah.
each of you pick a word that starts with G, and we're going to compose around that. So the topic idea is great. And the other thing I thought of, you said, like you were writing G based on what you know. You were writing a song
Mm-hmm.
about G based on what you know and about emotions and trying to get
Mm-hmm.
the kids involved. And so a lot of elementary music teachers, SEL is huge right now, social emotional learning, and are being
Mm-hmm.
asked to talk about it, but also teach music around helping kids with their emotions and things. And
Yeah.
I've heard from a lot of teachers, because I know this is true because I've looked, and it's hard sometimes to find a lot of music around feelings and emotions and things like that. And so
Mm-hmm.
don't be intimidated, like Lori said, to write your own song for your
Yeah.
students. Like when she's saying songwriting, it can be simple. Like you even said parody, pick a melody
Mm.
all your kids know, like the
Mm-hmm.
latest popular song, and then write
Yep.
some lyrics based on, I don't know, the emotion of anger. I don't know why that's the first one that came to mind, but it just was. But maybe you're talking about that, like how to be a good friend. And so you're
Yeah.
creating a song even together with your students, and then something that's going to be sticky and stick in their head. So
Yes.
those are two things that came to mind when you were talking about songwriting that I think is,
Yeah.
I mean, when you were writing songs for your preschool students you worked with, is that kind of how you did it? Like, did you write, when you were picking themes, did you write things that were kind of sticky and that they would remember and be able to catch on to quickly?
Oh yeah, for sure. My Hello song is it's based on Skip to My Lou.
Mm.
So, oh, and here's a big one for the early elementary is if you can incorporate their names into the song, they will be all
Oh,
about it.
that's
So when
awesome.
I do my Hello song, it's hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? Da-da-da. But
Mm-hmm.
then I say, it's nice to see Jessica's here. It's nice to see,
Mm-hmm.
Susie's here. It's nice
Mm-hmm.
to see everybody's here. How are you today? And then at the end, we say, okay, if you're feeling good, clap your hands. If you're feeling not so good, shake your hands. If you're,
Mm.
how are we feeling? Let's get in tune. Let's everybody literally get in tune with each other and
Yeah.
vibe off of the same. That's a beautiful thing about music too. It gets everybody in the same heart space
That's good.
pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And you can see who in your class is not in that heart space evidently, and who is and who totally is. And yeah, and when you were talking about the social emotional Sesame Street, that is their initiative.
Mm.
That was our page one of the info they gave us. They are focused on the social and emotional aspect of everything they teach. That is 100% in alignment with what they want, what they're conveying. It's not just entertainment for the sake of entertainment. It's always had an educational component.
Mm-hmm.
Always. That's the heart of Sesame Street. It's
Mm-hmm.
helping kids grow up smarter, stronger, and kinder. And yeah, so that's it. And if you
Yeah.
could teach that to kids, and if they can write the song, and if they can
Mm-hmm.
base it off of a song they already love, I mean, imagine how it'll get to them. It'll get through and into them and be part of them, and they're gonna be so proud of themselves.
That was
Mhm.
great advice.
Yeah.
Seriously, so true.
Mhm.
And so don't overwhelm yourself, and just
Yeah.
start somewhere. And it's okay.
Yeah.
Like it's
Don't
okay to be
reinvent the
real.
wheel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
So you've
Parody is like my jam. I love
Oh
it.
yeah. Oh, I'm always singing songs around my house for the kids. They really enjoy it.
And
Not too
throw their
much.
name into it.
Yeah.
Right. I
Well,
sing to
like I
my
make up a
dog.
song about everything. I'm cooking dinner, and
Uh-huh.
they're like, "Mom, stop."
Oh yeah. And when I start singing Hamilton, when Hamilton had just come out, whenever years ago,
Yeah.
when we were so into it, when my son was in third and fourth grade, we listened to it religiously. And so now it's just part of who I am now.
Yeah.
And anytime we're in the car or something and a phrase comes to me like, oh God, what's an example? Like you'll be back or whatever. And
Yeah.
then I just start singing like before. And then my kids are like, Mom, stop. But it's just it'll
Yeah.
become part of your
Yeah.
language. It'll be part of who you are. And just kids, and especially at that age when their brains are so impressionable, to
Mhm.
put those good grooves into their synapse, or their, what am I saying? I
I
don't
know what
know.
you mean. The
The
brain.
cognitive,
Yeah.
all that
The
good
brain
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah, it's like giving them tools they can
Mhm.
always go back to and just feel good about, and the
Yeah.
dopamine and all that
Oh, yeah.
good neurological stuff that
Yeah.
happens.
Okay, so with instruments, one thing, as we know, and hopefully it'll be over soon, but who knows at this point, COVID is
Yeah.
still around. And so when
Yeah.
it comes to using, okay, so when you're in a classroom environment, it is easy to pass out instruments and to actively
Mhm.
engage in music with the kiddos.
Yeah.
But when you are teaching from a screen, how do you suggest, first of all, if kiddos have instruments readily available at home to use, how can they use those from a screen with their teacher? Like, do you have any advice around how to teach over a screen and have kiddos using their instruments with their teacher?
Yeah, so I did like a series of sing-along classes, and I also did a series of ukulele classes. So I can tell you, when I did the sing-along classes, those were on Facebook Live, so I
Mm,
didn't hear anybody else. So
mm-hmm.
the mute button is your friend, as I'm sure a lot of the teachers, music teachers out there know. Mute button is your friend. Um, for that, and so I was just assuming that everyone was playing along. I did do some Zoom classes where I could see and hear everyone,
Yeah.
so that, I wonder if I muted them for those. I think I did. We did some make your own instruments. I think that was
Mhm.
one part of it. We did egg shakers with dry pasta and beans and Easter eggs. Scarves are nice because they're quiet and you can still use them in song. That's a nice thing to do. Oatmeal container drums are always good. Wooden spoons from your utensil drawer, those are good for drumsticks. And then obviously like using your hands to clap and things like that. Those are always good.
Mhm.
Um, with my ukulele class, that was pretty difficult, especially just getting them in tune. Half of the class, I'm like, could you please bring them to class in tune? But
Yeah.
these were beginner ukuleles. They didn't know, and their parents weren't
Mhm.
necessarily musicians, so they didn't know. And I actually had one of my students, I said, I will wear a mask and gloves, bring your uke to my house, and I will
Mhm.
tune it for you and give it back to you. So that, I know that's a frustration point for, I'm sure, a lot of music teachers that are especially teaching stringed instruments or things
Yeah.
that need to be in tone. um,
Right.
that is such a challenge, and I honestly don't necessarily have the answer for that. I just think,
Mhm.
tuners are your friend, clip-on tuners and tuning apps are your friend. And if the kids aren't in tune at the start of a class, man, you got to just hit the mute button and
Mhm.
hope for the best,
Mhm.
and hope that they can practice on their own with that. I don't know
Yeah.
how else to fix that problem.
You
Yeah,
can
so just,
yeah, you can
yeah,
unmute them one at a time and hear them individually too. So if it's too
yeah,
chaotic to have them all play together, like you said, it's different than when you're in an in-person environment, like especially with
yeah,
those, it's different if it's
yeah,
just like everybody get out your rhythm sticks versus, which that can still be chaotic too, but
yeah,
but a
yeah.
melodic instrument is totally different.
Yeah, and I would say one of the benefits of COVID is that you're teaching virtually, then you do have the mute button. I
Mhm.
found that as a teacher, it was like a breath of fresh air to just hear myself and hear myself think in
Mhm.
a classroom of a quote unquote classroom of students, where I could just be like, okay,
Yeah.
boom, like I
Yeah.
just need to hear myself, and yay. So I think that's actually a benefit. Um, of teaching online, for
Mhm.
sure.
Do you have
Yeah.
any tips or tricks for keeping the kids actively engaged, whether you're using instruments or not, while teaching from a screen?
I would say give them opportunities to shine during the lesson. So, the hand raise thing, okay, show us what everybody tap out a rhythm. Okay, now we're going to follow Johnny, okay, give us a rhythm. Everybody else is muted, but Johnny's going to play his rhythm, da, 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 or whatever, ta, ta, ti, ti, ta. And then
Yeah.
everybody has to play. So give each kid a chance to shine, and they won't know who you're going to call on next. So they're all paying attention so that they're, ready to be the next person that you call on. And I mean, using the chat button, I think helps too. So, if for the older kids, type in, I don't know, just, fill in the blank, or having them engage in typing in the chat, and just making sure you're calling out names that are saying, oh yeah, so yeah, Jimmy says, his favorite instrument is, the snare drum, or whatever, as the chat's going, to just keep them engaged by using their names, by letting each kid shine, and keeping things going, just keeping it moving, just like I did in my preschool classes. Man, you cannot let the dead air take over, because the strongest willed child will work their way into what's happening. And as we all know, that's kind of hard to reel back in. Or sometimes those are the kids you do let shine because they need to. And music is very performance based. And why not? You might have an all-star in your class that just literally wants the attention. Some kids don't want the attention. They're glad for that kid who is acting out, because they want to sit back and see and just be, kind of in the background. And I mean, if you have a kid that's got high energy, maybe you can use the energy for the class and let them shine a little, unless they're being outwardly like a discipline problem. Again, the mute button is your friend. But sometimes letting that kid get up, I know in my preschool classes, if there was a kid that was just totally out of sorts, I would give them the opportunity to be a leader, because sometimes those kids are the leaders. They just don't know where to put that energy. But if it was out of control, you got to shut it down sometimes too.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and a lot of times too, sometimes the kids who I hate when they're pre-labeled as, like a teacher in the hallway in a typical school year would be like, oh, this particular child, watch out for them, or you need to keep an eye on them, or this. I wouldn't have any issues with that particular child. And I'm like, wait, what? Because they a lot of these kiddos respond differently in music than they will in other subject areas, because they feel more confident, or they find themselves in there and they're like, oh, I feel like I can do this and I enjoy it. And so, I love that. Some of the kids that come across as like rowdy or disobedient, sometimes they just are loving it and have so much energy for it because they're excited to be there.
And they're working, sorry, I interrupted, but they're working through emotions. Music is such a perfect medium for that. Okay, so so-and-so's having a bad day. Let's listen to some rock and roll and bang our heads and get it out of our systems. And then we can do a quiet meditation. Some of the kids loved when I would just say, okay, we're going to lay on our backs and we're just going to listen to some spa music for 1 minute, and we're all just going to breathe. And sometimes that's all they need. And sometimes simplicity is the best answer. And I know we're in our society, we're just trained to be performers, but we don't have to be performers. Like you were saying, sometimes you just sit at the piano and play. I do the same thing. I play when nobody's around, and it's just as good, if not better, because no one's listening. So my mistakes don't matter. And it's like meditating. It's wonderful. And that's what we want to pass on to kids, that you can use music as a tool in your life when you need it. And it doesn't have to be performance based, and you don't have to be perfect at it. And you don't need to go on American Idol and The Voice just because you're a good singer. No, you can sing for yourself in the shower. And it's use your voice the way you want to use it.
It's all about developing lifelong lovers of music. It's okay if they don't end up getting a music degree or want to do music as a career, but it's developing that love of music and developing their own style of music and finding what kind of music they like to listen to and how they like to enjoy music. And that's so important to remember. When you have those days where you feel like none of the kids are paying attention, they're paying attention more than you think they are. It's hard to see sometimes.
And kids in music can be so many things. It can be funny, and kids can laugh and release, it's hard to be a kid It's really hard to be a kid. We
Oh,
think
yeah.
it's so easy, but it's so not easy. I said to my daughter today, like, gosh, I remember being a teenager. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
You're and I tell my kids, I'm like, your brains aren't even fully formed yet.
Mhm.
You can't think straight, and you're so influenced by
Mhm.
your friends and the media and your parents, and
Mhm.
everyone's telling you what to do and how to be, and nobody lets you just be.
I know. I know.
It's so hard. And kids,
Yeah.
there's a lot going on in
Yeah.
kids' brains, and geez, music is just such an outlet, and
Mhm.
that's what it should be.
Mhm. Oh,
Yeah.
so great. So great. I love that you said
Yeah.
that. So for
Mhm.
kids at home that don't have access to instruments right now, um,
Mhm.
even during a non-COVID time, and just want to explore music on their own at home, but maybe their families can't afford
Mhm.
to put them in lessons or instruments.
Mhm.
What are simple ways they can even make their own instruments at home? Just do you have some ideas for that?
Um, beyond the egg shaker and that kind of thing, I think if kids have access to a phone or, their mom or dad's phone or okay, I'll tell you what I did when I was little. When I was in my room all alone or sent to my room or just wanting to be alone, remember tape recorders?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
remember, the stories on tape, and then you could turn the
Yes.
cassette over and record your own story. Remember those?
Yes.
So I would sit in my room for hours. I would play a record of instrumental music and I would make up words to the song. I would just
Mhm.
make up whatever I wanted to sing about. And I would highly encourage kids to use the voice recorder app on their phone. It comes standard with every single phone, and just have fun and
Mhm.
just play around. I mean, some of them might end up just, talking, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Language has rhythm to it too. You might want to read a story into the voice recorder and play it for your little cousin or something and send it to them to listen to before they go to bed. You might want to do what I did and, make up your own song to another recording. You might want to sing a song that's on the radio and just hear what you sound like, because it's different when you listen back to a recording versus talking and hearing yourself talk or sing. It is different,
Mhm.
and that's kind of a skill to get used to. So I would say use the resources you have around you, and technology is so amazing these days. For your older students, GarageBand is really fun to play around with.
Yeah.
For sure. That's what got me into doing recording, sync songwriting, and
Mhm.
that's a whole new avenue
Yeah.
to explore and have fun with.
Yeah.
Like rap music, like
Mhm.
that's always fun too, to just get a bunch of words condensed
Mhm.
and just get them to a rhythm and have fun with that. I know that's where my middle schoolers are. When they were experimenting with writing music, they would get on GarageBand and like pick a beat because there's so many preset
Yeah.
beats.
Yeah.
Pick a beat and play it and then just freestyle, you know?
Mhm.
It's just like when you go to a playground, you just play, you
Yeah.
know? Have fun. Don't It doesn't have to lead to anything. It doesn't have to like it doesn't have to always be a performance. Just play
Mhm.
to have fun, you
That's
know?
good. Yeah.
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 But yeah,
Yeah.
for at-home instruments, I mean, my kids are lucky because I have every instrument hanging on our wall. So my son picked up my pink ukulele over Christmas and taught himself how to play what was it? Silent Night.
Oh, that's so
And
awesome.
he did come to me to work out a couple of the kink parts, but
Mhm.
he did it on his own. Only
So
be in
cool.
and I've never taught him a music lesson in my life. I've always been in the camp of I want my kids to want to.
Mhm.
I will not force them,
I'm
even
the
though
same.
I'm grateful to
Yeah.
my parents for forcing me to take piano. It didn't kick in for me that I actually liked it until I was like a teenager, and I started
Yeah.
at age 6.
Yeah.
Totally didn't love it. Totally didn't love it. But now I'm so grateful. But I'm trying a new approach where I want them to want to play, and I have the instruments if they do decide to play. So, I mean, this is another reason I got into selling instruments. I
Mhm.
want every household to at least have a ukulele. At
Mhm.
the very least, get a ukulele, have it in your house so that someday when you pick it up and you start playing around with the, the open strings, even not even knowing how to play a chord,
Yeah.
you can have something in your hand that's not a digital device and it's analog. And if the power goes out, you can still make music.
Yeah.
And you can have fun with it. And there's 10 billion YouTube videos on how to play a ukulele. I just think it's the most accessible instrument. It's not intimidating like a piano. You don't have to know, like a woodwind is a whole different thing. Guitars are pretty intimidating. They're big. The strings are metal. It hurts to play at the beginning. A ukulele, oh my gosh, they're like cute little nylon strings, and you can hold it, and it's so light, and you can throw it in a suitcase if you want to, and take it with you on vacation. And so that's my recommendation is, of course, buy a ukulele from my shop. But that was one of my big goals. I'm like, I can't get to people to play music for them. I want to get music to their houses. So at least, and that's why I started with ukuleles, because it's so accessible.
Yeah.
It's just, I just think they're just so cute and so perfect. So I'd say invest in a ukulele.
And for teachers that have families at home who can't afford instruments, I worked in a very low income school, and my families, they, didn't have, not all of them, I can't label every family, but there were families that didn't have access to instruments. And, but what I would say to that, and I know you agree with this, is that kids have voices. They can always sing, they can always do body percussion. And my own children will find, household items and create music out of them. I'll be like, what do you have? Like, there was empty paper towel rolls one day, and one of them was playing them together like sticks, or using the table as a drum. And so Pinterest has 9 million ideas for how to make an instrument. So just look there if you want ideas for your kiddos, like easy things, like you said, the shaker and things. But investing, if you can, in an instrument, definitely ukulele, I agree, is like a very inexpensive way to start. But also just leave opportunities, and tell your students, like, grab a pair of spoons from the kitchen drawer if it's okay with your mom. Today we're going to use, I don't know, a plastic bowl, and we're going to turn it over and use it as a drum, or a bucket. And so just finding household items, even if you don't have time to make instruments with your students, to definitely find items around the house, or just tell them to use their own bodies and voices. And like you said, I love what you said about even using a phone, because let's be honest, a lot of kids have phones now, or their parents do. Or tablets or whatever. I've never heard anybody just say to do, like, I don't know. It's like the simplest ideas where you're like, oh yeah, duh. Like that's so easy. They can even read a story, create like a little track behind the story, and read the story to a rhythm. Like, it's just simple ideas like that.
Yeah. That's how I started as a kid with the tape recorder. It was just fun, and just the tape recorder is huge. And bonus, you get a record to go back to hear their cute little voices. And actually, and too, as a parent, oh my gosh, our job is to document those cute moments, right? So if your child happens to be like singing a little song in their room, like, sneak over with your recorder and don't be seen, but hit record and get that, because oh my gosh, is this so precious. Now here's the thing, you don't want to scare kids away. That's something, especially when they start realizing that their peers care. I think, as the middle school age kids especially, they're very aware of judgment. Nobody really wants to stand out unless they have like confidence in spades. That's very rare. But letting them do things like that on their own, like, hey, you can't even direct them to do it. It's almost like they have to come up with it on their own, or you do it, lead by example or something. But you want them to have that outlet that they keep to themselves. They don't have to share with anybody. When I was little, those recordings were really just for me. And when I showed them to my family, they loved them, but they thought they were hysterical. They were parody songs, and they were hysterical. But then I was like embarrassed, so it's hard, because you want to be yourself, but you don't want to be ridiculed for it. And I think people have best intentions. They're laughing because they love you, and they really think it's funny. And I don't know, it might be, but that's a tricky age. Very tricky, very tricky. But still, kids need to express themselves in a safe space. So your phone is a very safe space.
Yeah. And so just encouraging students, like, maybe you are going to have those kids who aren't comfortable like sharing or singing or participating in a class environment, especially virtually. It's so hard, like they're struggling just to show their face at all in a Zoom call. They're like, so
Yes.
don't be offended if like a student's not wanting to participate. Maybe it's just because, like you said, they are embarrassed or they are creating music. Maybe they get off that Zoom call and they go do everything you just told them to do, but privately. And you maybe
Yes.
just don't know. There's a lot of kids I know that are like that.
Yeah, another thing, I don't know if a lot of teachers do this, but when I was teaching my online ukulele classes, as like our final project, I said, choose one of the songs we worked on if you want to. And it wasn't graded or anything. Record yourself or have someone record you, and you're just going to send it to me. I'm the only one that's going to look at it. And these were like 5 to 9-year-olds. So their parents were filming them. So the parents did get the video. So they like had the video for their purposes. But for me, I was like, I don't want you to have to share in front of the whole group unless you want to. So you're just sending it to me, the teacher, and that's where it'll stop. So that might be a safe way for them to share. But it's important too, when you're creating something, you do kind of need an audience if you're creating it to share.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's tricky. I have a ton of songs on my phone that I've never shared with the public at all. And they're really good songs.
Yeah.
And I just keep them to myself.
Yeah.
I don't know and like, here's the thing too, I have a stockpile so that if someone in my life, if I'm like, oh, so-and-so's going through a hard time and I made that song and it sounds really good, so I'm just going to send that to them. And that's going to be my gift to them. But it doesn't need to go out to the internet. It doesn't need to go on Facebook. I don't need to record it. I don't need to make an album with it. It's just like a special gift that I have, and I'm just going to share it with one person. So music can be a beautiful, beautiful gift that we give too. So
Lori, I have loved this conversation today. And so I would love for you to just give any closing thoughts or advice you have to music teachers, and then tell us all the places we can connect with you online and where your shop is and all those good things.
All right. So I wrote down a lot. You might have to make this into 2 episodes.
No, and I'll put everything in the show notes, so no worries.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is for mostly, this is for the teachers, right? So the first thing I thought of when I was brainstorming this is, if you're having a really hard day teaching, get quiet and remember why you chose music. That I just think is so important, to keep coming back to your why. And I think that if you get really quiet, the answer will come to you, and it'll put you back into your purpose of why you teach. And then how do you want to feel? And then, usually music, it does make you feel better. So what is that actual feeling? Do you want to feel free? Do you want to feel lighter? Do you want to feel energized? Do you want to feel, think of all the ways you want music to make you feel, and try to get into that flow. And that'll put you back into that mindset of why we do music. And then you feel the feeling. And then from there, you can really be a better teacher. So make sure you take time to, again, get quiet, give yourself that space to just breathe and just be still, so that you can refuel yourself to get back to the music. Try to stay in alignment, be authentic with who you are, give yourself tons of grace. This is a whole new wild west of the internet and pandemic world. And gosh, it's hard right now, especially for teachers. I'm on a music teacher Facebook group, even though I don't technically teach anymore. I just want to see what's going on. Every post is frustration. Every post is, I can't do this. Every post is, I want to be home with my newborn, but now I have to go teach, and I'm pumping in between classes, and my heart is just breaking for these teachers right now. So it's super important to find your tribe and connect with groups like that. There are tons of Facebook groups right now. You have a Facebook group, right? I have a Facebook group. It's a sing-along parenting group where I'm just basically giving more music out if you need it. But just finding a tribe, connecting with like-minded souls and teachers, obviously, to just feel like you're not alone in how you're feeling as a teacher. And then if you if you really truly want to make the leap, I would say start a side hustle with something that you feel good about, that you're good at, and take one of your superpowers and start dabbling over there. That's what I did with, sing-alongs, and I had a nice side hustle, not only teaching, but then I was doing sing-alongs at libraries, and now I can do sing-alongs online and come into somebody else's page and do a show for them or whatever.
So where can everybody find you online?
Okay, so online, I am at Lori_Burke_ music on Instagram, or just Lori Burke Music, LORIBURKE music on Facebook too. And if you want to shop in my shop, it's a curated bunch of instruments that light me up and that are really focused on elementary to early elementary music teachers and beginners. So if that's LoriBurkeMusicShop.com, really easy to remember. And I just started adding, so I have ukuleles, guitars, drums, shakers, tuners, wall mounts, all that good stuff, but I just added jewelry, and I have lyrics from my original songs on the jewelry. So I'm actually wearing one right now.
Oh, that's so cool. I've got
a copper bracelet with my my lyric "You Are Loved," which is my children's lullaby album. I've got "Hold On," which is my folk album title, and then I've got another one, "To Feel Alive," which is a just a reminder to do what you love to feel alive. They can join the Sing Along Parenting Group. It's just called Sing Along Parenting Group on Facebook. And if you go to my link tree in my Facebook and Instagram, or on Instagram, you're going to find all my stuff. My Shopify shop is on there. My Etsy shop is there. My work with Sesame Street is there. The link to the Sesame video is there. The link to my All About the Bass parody is there. So all my hits are on my link tree on Instagram. And if you want to buy instruments with me as a teacher to supply your classroom, I would be super happy to do that with you. I can drop ship large orders. It's like $15 no matter how many instruments you buy from me. If you want to get on my teaching list of teachers, you can take a survey in my link tree. I can send you the link to put in the show notes, but it's basically just a survey saying, where do you live? What's your budget? How many instruments do you need? And what do you need? And then I can email you and say, all right, let's get this order going. Because my goal really with the shop is to do large orders for schools. So I would love to get you recorders and ukes and drums and shakers and all that good stuff. Yeah, all the links and stuff will be there. And
and I'll include all that in the show notes as well. So perfect.
Awesome.
So everybody, make sure you connect with Lori and check out all the great things she's doing and check out her shop. And I know that I just really appreciate this episode, and thank you for coming on and sharing your knowledge and all your advice. And it's been really a breath of fresh air. So I appreciate it. Well, hey there. Thank you so much for listening into the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. There is an exclusive Facebook group just for listeners of this podcast and any elementary music teacher called the Elementary Music Teacher Community Facebook Group. Come on over and join us there, where we have conversations around the podcast episodes and encourage each other each and every week. And also head to my website, thedomesticmusician.com. I have some free resources there that you can download to help you gain traction in your classroom today, as well as the blog and the membership site and all kinds of other goodies to help you keep going in your music teaching journey. I cannot wait to keep connecting with you and encouraging you and spurring you on in your journey of teaching elementary music. Hang in there, have an amazing week, and I will see you soon.